Alright YouTube, it's time for Occult Literature video number 64, the Turba Philosophorum. Now as always, link in the description to where you can purchase this work, my edition, off of Amazon. Second link to my books blog. If you're interested in alchemy, there's an ever-growing library of material there. There are grimoires, everything that you could possibly want under the sun, anything related to the occult, magic, mysticism in any way, shape, or form, it's all going to be there in time. The Turba Philosophorum is about 109 pages in length, so it's considerably longer than the average text of alchemy. Some of these, you struggle to get them to the 24 pages that you need to actually release through CreateSpace. You can do it like Amazon Direct and it can be shorter, but what's the point? Nobody's going to buy that anyway unless you're pricing it at like 99 cents. Probably costs more to ship it at that point. The Turba, though, is sort of in the form of a quasi-dialogue between the Turba, which has been organized, and of course the figures listed here are not actually the people speaking. The text was written later. Between certain figures within philosophy, science, alchemy at large, debating on the topic of various aspects of alchemy and of natural science, of the spiritual overlap between the physical process of alchemy and the spirit world, like the cosmic bodies, celestial influence, and so forth, as well as on the actual practice of alchemy. Now, this is a thickly veiled alchemical text. It's one of the longest. It's comparable to the Rosary of the Philosophers in length, and closer to that than it is many of these shorter manuscripts. It's quite long. But it's thickly veiled. If you're interested in philosophy and the philosophic side of alchemy, it's a must-have. If you're interested in the physical practice, this spells it all out, but it does so in such thickly veiled terms that it might not be immediately evident what's actually being spoken of. It's talking, of course, about, for instance, nature is from nature, nature rejoices in nature, one of the basic tenets of this sort of alchemical path, this basic philosophy. The idea that sulfur is of sulfur, all of these substances come from their own essence, and it talks in these sort of terms. And so if you can see through that, you'll understand basically what's going on. If not, you'll be completely lost. So if you want one of the most dense, one of the longest and most in-depth looks at alchemy, this is something that you'll want. If you're dedicated to the cause of studying alchemy, for whatever purpose, maybe you have an actual philosophic fire in your backyard, with the balneum and everything else, or maybe you're more interested in the spiritual, the philosophical overlap of alchemy, in which case you're going to want this text. If you're more interested in just the physical practice alone and you want something simplistic, this is probably not the alchemical text for you. It's still very good. It definitely gives you a very good reference for all of these things, but you're going to have to do some Googling in order to look up some of the terms used. Because you got to remember, they use terms like aqua fortis, aqua regia, vinegar, wine of vinegar, and so forth as stand-ins for some of these chemical compounds. Of course, any clear, transparent liquid was to them some kind of water, and if it happened to be actually like an acid or something, they'd give it some other term and said, oh, it's water, but it's taken on some other aspect to it. It's still water, you know. Nitric acid, it's still water, it's just water that happens to burn your tongue and dissolve things and so forth. And this is quite prevalent within alchemy. It's also slightly amusing because at certain points there are actually rebukes from this sort of imaginary turba, this gathering of the philosophers, directed towards some of the people in what they've said, rebuking them. Either they didn't speak enough on a topic, or they were envious, as in, and that's used commonly, avoid envy at all costs, essentially. Oh, you're trying to rip off someone else's work as your own without saying anything new. At a couple points, people speak and they're like, oh, well, you should remain silent. You're not a true philosophic master. You're just like an adherent of one of these masters, and so you shouldn't be speaking at all. It's very funny, actually, to read. So if you want some mild amusement in sort of this medieval through Renaissance alchemical fare, you will enjoy this as well. And again, you can look at this as a fictional work as well, and sort of an occult guide, and it's all good. So as before, link in the description if you would like to purchase an edition of this work off of Amazon. paperback, of course. Second link to the book's blog. There are plenty of physical alchemical texts there that are less thickly veiled if you would like to acquire them, that I've released editions of. There are also other texts that are more veiled or more philosophical, and they don't even get into the hands-on approach. I would recommend A Work of Saturn by Hollandus. Some of the other works, including a few that I'm working on now, quite physical, less of the metaphor there, more of the literalism. This one has a mix of the two, but at the same time, because it uses some of these archaic terms, some of which are still impossible to fully figure out, yes, indeed, it will be a difficult read for somebody who's just interested in, like, making fake gold or something. It'd be rather difficult. That's about all. Peace out.